My name is Sean Petrie, and I am a poet, and I often do poems on the spot on a typewriter. People come up, give me a topic, and I type them up a poem in 1 to 2 minutes on an old vintage typewriter. Often it's part of a group called Typewriter Rodeo. This is one of the poems that I did in that particular manner, and it was at a craft fair called a Maker Faire here in Austin, Texas. And this guy came up and he said, can I do a poem? My partner wants to have kids and I don't. And we've been together for about 8 years and there's nothing wrong, it's just, and he kind of stopped and trailed off like that. And I said, sure, I can write you that poem. So here's the poem that I did on the spot for him. Nothing's wrong. Have you ever heard of binary stars? It happens when 2 points of light, 2 bright burning bodies, are so drawn together that they become encircled, a pair, orbiting around each other in perfect balance. But not forever, because sometimes it's a small shift, maybe a nanosecond break in gravity, maybe a minuscule meteor from nowhere. And those 2 stars, that forever pair, suddenly split. And it's not because anything is wrong or bad, it's just that the universe says it's time. And I gave him that poem. I took a photo of the poem and then gave it to that person. Never saw him read it, never saw him again, but that story and luckily the photo of that poem have stuck with me. And when I wrote that poem, when I started to write it, the first thing that popped into my head was just this image of binary stars. And so I went with that. I had no idea where the poem was going. And that image or that idea came from, I'm pretty sure, maybe about 2 to 3 weeks earlier. I had gone on this trip, this road trip out to West Texas, to the McDonald Observatory out there, and you can stay out there in this place called the Astronomer's Lodge, which is not very fancy, but it's really cool. And most of the people staying there are actual astronomers from around the country, and I was the only non-astronomer there. And I'd had dinner with the folks, and the particular people who were there when I was this group from Notre Dame University, and they were there, and several of them were studying, observing binary stars. And so I didn't really know too much about or maybe anything about those, but I found out some over dinners with those people. And so that worked its way back, found its way back into this poem. And I think poems can often do that. They will combine 2 things that you normally wouldn't have combined before. And I think being open and receptive to those combinations and figuring out as you go why your brain, your poetry brain or subconscious has put those things together can be a really cool journey and exploratory process. Naomi Shihab-Nye, who's one of my favorite poets and a friend, has this great poem called Valentine for Earnest Man, where she's talking about how she got a request for a poem, not unlike Typewriter Rodeo or their typewriter poetry, where this kid said, hey, it's Valentine's Day, write me a poem. And so she was like, you can't just order up a poem. And she talked about how you have to look for poems and where they hide. And then she brought in this other component about one of her friends who gave his wife this skunk, stuffed skunk for Valentine's Day, or maybe just as a gift, because he loved how its eyes looked. And it was the combination of these 2 really cool things that she wove together into this beautiful poem. And I think, again, doing that, like somebody asks you for a poem about a relationship going its separate ways when nothing's wrong, and then this idea pops in. For me, it was binary stars, and I was like, I don't know why or exactly where that's going, but I just launched into the poem. And again, I think that can be such a cool, fun, unique process of discovering how your own poetry mind works and going with it. I'm Sean Petrie, and thank you for watching and listening.